Hello, good evening, and welcome to the first in a 4-week instalment of lives with Jenny and myself, starting this week with lipedema and your relationship with food. We're just waiting for Jenny to come in and join us, and then we're going to we'll get moving. Anybody who's here, this will be recorded and I will be putting it on my page. I'm just going to let you know now. So I'm just going to see if Jenny's there. Yeah, we've got...
Perfect.
Hello.
Figure out the camera. Okay, how are we
How are
doing,
you?
Jenny?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Good.
Excited for these 4-week installments. I think it's a good thing that we're coming from a different place about our healing journey. We're giving, we're
Absolutely.
giving, we're giving away, a different way of dealing with things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I'm super excited.
yeah.
Like,
No, this is
look.
going to be good. This is good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So. Uh, we are going to have the comments on for now, and we'll see how the comments go. But if we need to shut them off, we'll shut the comments off. But if anybody's got any questions, can you please put them in the question box so that at the end, Jenny and I can answer this. We will be on for roughly about an hour. First things first, it's a full moon tonight. So first thing I want to say is make sure you get your crystals out, get any bottles outside, get your moon water. Always this is a good time for release. So this is actually a really good time for us to do this, because releasing is something that you really need to do with this illness. Do you not agree?
Absolutely. And I love the word release, because I think obviously lipedema is all wrapped up with weight loss, and something that a term that's always used is lose weight. I want to lose weight. And I really encourage people to switch that to release weight, release the lipedema, release this from your body, as opposed to
I never use
losing.
weight. Like, if in my clinic, I don't use weight. I never use weight with a client, ever, 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 ever do I ever talk about their weight. If they say the word weight to me, then that's fine. But I will explain it to them as inflammation.
Yeah.
Like, I will explain that those fat cells are inflamed. It is not you. If there's natural fat there that they want to lose, then that's their choice. But again, I will use those words, natural fat. I try and stay away from the word weight or scales or anything to do with that, because I think it's just so triggering. Like, for anybody, it's just so triggering and unfair.
Yeah.
Because we've
No,
got a lot of
totally.
stigma on us. We've got a lot of stigma that has been landed on us in this community over the years. I've had it for years. Like, it's it's damaging.
It is. It
It
is.
literally is damaging. Like, if you feel that you can't get past those feelings, it'll start to eat you up inside. And it's learning how to break free from how that makes you feel and turn it into a healing journey. See it as a journey. I try and explain to everybody it's a journey. It's not it's a journey. It's not a race. We're not looking to get to the end. Like, we're not looking to get to the end of the line straight away. We're looking to just collect ourselves, understand what this journey is about, how we're going to put the journey together. Everybody's different. And I think that's what is going to bring, over these next 4 weeks, a different perspective of how to walk into that journey and how to use this journey for your own good. I'm going to start by saying hi. I'm Karen. You all know me. So I'm Karen, known as Caddy, and I am a lymphatic reflexologist and fascia therapist. I am hot on nutrition, hot on self-care, hot on uh, exercise, like everything that goes full circle with looking after these illnesses. I'm diagnosed with 8 different illnesses, stemming from lipedema, lymphedema, Derkham's disease, osteoarthritis, CFS, fibromyalgia, hypermobility, and Ehlers-Danlos. And so that's a whole bunch to take on board. So I am proud of myself that I've got myself to the point where I am today, considering where I was. So when I was first diagnosed, it was 2005, and in 2005 I was diagnosed with lymphedema. I'm going to do this really quickly. It then, after lots of surgeries and lots of failures in surgeries and wheelchairs, crutches, and leg braces, was diagnosed with lymphedema in 2015. Long story short, I was being put forward to the CCG for funding for lipedema surgery. I was turned down on cosmetics purposes. I then tried to go private. It was going to cost me in around 55,000. It was just unattainable for me to do that. I hit rock bottom, and then I bounced back, and I've now built a business and a formula and drive around fighting these illnesses for myself, trying to formulate and put things together that work for me, that are going to work for other people. And that is why people are traveling into my clinic, because that's what I do best. I feel like this is my purpose. It is purpose driven, and I was put here for this reason. And I feel like those surgeries were stopped by the divine, if you like, because I was supposed to figure this out. So that is my story. And I've lost just over 200 pounds of natural fat. So I have had to train my body through my muscles to create what you can see today, which has been hard work. It's been a lot of years,
but very inspiring for everybody.
I did it for me, but I've done it for everybody else. I've done it for the community. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did it for myself, but I've done it for the community because I wanted to be able to give something back. And now that I know what works for me, I'm convinced it can work for other people. So anyway, Jenny, tell us about you and your story.
Okay, so I'm an emotional eating coach, and I've worked in this industry since 2005, which was when I found out I had lipedema. So originally, I started my journey by losing, not sure what it is in pounds, but 6.5 stone. And it was then that I discovered lipedema, because I didn't have a clue I had it. But what happened was I'd managed to get myself to the smallest possible weight I could.
Talking. I'm just going to close the window.
Whereas the smallest possible place I could, in terms of like in UK size, I'd got down to like a size 8 on top, and I kept going because my legs weren't changing, and my legs were still kind of like, you know, a size 14 at 16, and my body was so small on top. And it was then that I decided to look into a thigh lift, because I'd kind of convinced myself clearly there was something going on with my legs, and it was my own fault, because I'd been, you know, I'd struggled with my relationship with food, and therefore I decided to look for a thigh lift. And actually 2 surgeons sent me away and said, you need to lose more weight. And it was the 3rd surgeon that diagnosed me with lipedema and said, it's actually, you know, this is illness is what it is. And that's when I was like, wow. And obviously back in 2005, a lot of people did not kind of know anything about lipedema. I mean, it's still unknown now, but it's come so far. So I went through, so I had a thigh lift. Now in hindsight, I think looking back, I probably needed some additional help with the lipedema fat before I had that. But, you know, again, it was still so unknown. And I went on to have other surgeries. Yeah, so a very different journey to you, because I know you didn't have any surgery for your lipedema.
No.
But I had skin removal surgery. I've had lipo on my calves. I've had skin removal on my stomach. Well, I've had a full body lift, but a lot of my surgeries, well, some of them are related to the lipedema, some are related to skin removal. So that's where I am. But since 2005, I have continue to develop my relationship with food, because it has been a very up and down journey, and I'm really open and honest about the fact that just because I lost weight and people say to me, oh well, you know, you kind of got it under control, it's like, it's not that easy. It's not, you know, there's still that internal battle that when you've had a tricky relationship with food, that you are still working through it. And as you said about the you know, the journey with lipedema, I believe it's very similar with food. It's a process, it's a journey. It's not a kind of overnight kind of thing that just changes in your mind. And I always give the example of, it's like learning to play an instrument. You wouldn't go to a piano lesson once a week and expect to be able to play within a couple of months. It takes you years to master that craft. I'm, what is it, like 18 years on in my developing my relationship with food, and I work in the industry. I do it every day with my clients, and I still learn new things about myself, and I still develop new methods of kind of quick wins and making it easy.
But that's exactly the same as like in what I do. Everything, like, you're like me, so you trial and error everything throughout your life. You've been working trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Some things are going to work, some things are not going to work, and it's the same for me. Even now, today, I am trialing and erroring on different treatment paths, different ways of conservative treatment in the clinic. Like, there's all sorts of things going on all the time. I might not talk about them straight away because I want to know whether or not this works, and how does it work, and can I put this together, can I put this out and talk to other people about it, because you just never know. But I'm constantly looking for the answers. I'm always out there looking for answers, and I never stop looking for new approaches or new evidence or new research. Honestly, the research I do, if I was to count up the hours of research I've done over the years, we're talking thousands, literally thousands. But then that's the same for you on the other side of the coin with emotional eating. And I think what's a good thing is having the two of us here in two different separate stories, like one who hasn't gone through surgery, but one who has gone through surgery, because we have to look at it from every perspective, because there are people who want to have surgery, and there's also people who don't want to have surgery. And so we have got to be able to give the same advice to the whole community.
Absolutely. And I think it coming from both sides, I think we spoke last week about, like, for me, I didn't know that I had lipedema until I changed my relationship with food. Whereas for you, it was almost the trigger to change your relationship with food. So it's interesting coming from both, because I think I said to you, would I have changed my relationship with food if I have had the diagnosis beforehand? Or would that have sent me into a spiral of, there's nothing I can do, what's the point? Because, you know, I know that you can feel that way, like and you're told by some you know, some surgeons, some GPs, you're told there's no other option than surgery. You're told that it doesn't matter what you do, which isn't true, because you've proved that, and I've proved that you know, me not knowing I had it, you knowing that you had it, that there are things you can do to change your body without going down the surgical route. So,
but only because I had no choice. And I think because I was left with no choice, that's why I've been able to put this all together, because I literally had no choice. Like, we've got a woman on here already who said I can't afford it. And that is a massive problem to the whole community. There are thousands of women out there who cannot afford to have this surgery, but I will not stand by and not let them have an idea that they can do something for themselves. That is the big thing here. And I was saying in my messages in my stories the other day, people were asking me, how did you get to where you are? And I said, every single thing has got to be consistent. Like, there needs to be consistency there. If we go all the way back, like, obviously we're doing a live about lipedema and food. So if I go all the way back, because I've been having, you know, some memories have been popping up. if we go right the way back to when I was about 13 years old, when I put my post out this week, there's a picture of me at 13 years old. You can clearly see I've got lipedema. However, no doctor or dietitian told me that. They just told me that, well, they told my mum that your daughter's obese. We need to get her on a diet. We need to do something about this. But it's quite obvious that there's that very different shape to that tiny little 13-year-old.
But it just wasn't known all of those years ago.
Known. But then when that 13-year-old wasn't losing weight like the dietitian wanted, then the dietitian was angry at the 13-year-old and then was applying pressure to the 13-year-old that 13-year-old was not doing what she was supposed to be doing, even though she was breaking because she was doing what she was supposed to be doing. And that never came into play. And so that has traveled through my whole life. Like the young Karen had those issues, and then that spiraled into my teens, going into my late teens, spiraled into my early adult, into my early 20s, and then I got poorly. But now we're going to come. So, but I feel like the pressure of the pressure that I had on me over those years led to the illnesses, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going on in my body. I had no idea what was going on in my body. And so you are ridiculed, there's bullying within your family, there's bullying within your peer friendship groups, there's bullying on the street, you go to restaurants, you don't want to eat food. So here starts the relationship with food. You're in a restaurant with your family and you're like, no, I'm not going to eat. And your mum's like, you have got to eat some food. But you don't want to eat any food because you're being ridiculed.
Did you secret eat? Because that was a big thing for me. I used to hide my food, and I got really cross with my mum because she would give me less or different food to my brother, and like try and restrict and help me to lose weight. And then I'd be like,
the whole thing went on in my house at the same time.
Yeah, I used to steal money out of her pocket and then go to the shop. We live next door to a paper shop, and then hide it under my bed and sit and eat it later.
That is a whole life in itself. Because if I was to go down the whole route of, there's actually quite a lot at this full moon tonight that I want to release from the past, because I have had these memories come back, and I've wondered why this is coming back. I think it has to do with the lives. That as soon as we started talking about putting this together, it started triggering me as to where I used to be when I was a kid. Like, I can tell you stories of where my mum would say to me, she'd give me money and she'd tell me to go into a shop and buy a chocolate bar, for instance, right? I wouldn't go in and I wouldn't go up to the till. I'd just walk away. Yeah, I have clients, Lulu, I have clients who do exactly the same. But the one thing that I want to say to you is, don't beat yourself up on that. That's not your fault. That is not your fault. You're only doing that because you've been pushed into that, probably under some similar story that I'm telling about myself.
I think if you are still secret eating now as well, it's quite often it's because you're restricting food in some way, or you feel you should be restricting food in some way.
Yeah, but I think that stems from childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you feel that you need to restrict the food, or you shouldn't be eating food because of that relationship that you've developed with food over the years, then that is why you end up secret eating, because you feel embarrassed or ashamed of what you are eating. So then you eat it, you know, not in public, so nobody, it might be fear of judgment, fear of a comment being made, you know, someone saying, should you be eating that? Or maybe, you know, it might be that you've got complete support, but you still feel shame on yourself that you shouldn't be eating certain foods, so then you eat it in secret. But I do know that if you are restricting your food intake and following a diet, then that massively can lead to secret eating, because you feel like you shouldn't be having it because it's not part of your plan.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think, and I think that's not what is educated today. Like
yeah,
that part of it needs to have its own brand of education from an early age,
yeah,
especially now. They say they say that 1 in 11. I don't believe that. I think it's way more than that.
that have lipedema. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I've just come back from Lanzarote and I was just laying around the pool and I wanted to go and speak to so many ladies.
It happens all the time. I was in Brighton and I was walking around and I was like, oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, you could just see it, and you can just and so it's more common than we actually know.
Yeah,
way more common than what we actually know. But that is definitely what led me to have a very bad relationship with food.
Yeah, totally.
And I have to, like, even though I've managed to do what I've managed to do with my body, my relationship with food isn't necessarily a great relationship with food now, because I've had to trial and error different things that work. And obviously I did 2 years of keto and it worked, but I couldn't. I know thousands of people who do sustain it, and I take my hat off to them, but I couldn't physically sustain it. And so I started panicking. Like, I got into a place of panic because I was like, oh my God, what happens if I come off this and it all goes back on? So that's part of this relationship cycle with food. I have now found a happy place. I am totally happy within my low carb, high protein. One of the things I needed to do was get rid of the fats, for me. I'm not saying that not everybody, that for thousands of people that works for them. But for me, this is what works for me. And this is why when a client comes in and they see a physical change in the treatment that I do, I'm always very aware of saying to that person, their eating plan, their nutrition plan is down to them. You figure out, I'll help you, but you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, I do something similar. I take my clients through creating their own food framework, and it's kind of like, reviewing everything that's worked for you in the past, reviewing how you actually like to eat, how that fits into your lifestyle, and then creating your own food framework from that. And something I really encourage people to do, and obviously if you're going onto something like keto, cake isn't a very good example, but I say to people, someone might say to me, oh Jenny, but I really love cake. And I say, okay, let's be really specific about that cake. What cake is it you love? Is it chocolate cake? Is it carrot cake? Is it, and home in on what you really, really like, because cake is huge. There's so many different cakes. The same as saying I really love crisps or I really love biscuits. And I try and encourage people to think about what it is that they really find pleasure in and what it is they like about that. And maybe it's an association, maybe it's actually an association with chocolate cake from childhood, and we uncover the pleasure in that food and explore that rather than just...
I'm pretty convinced there's a lot of inner child healing that needs to come
absolutely
in this journey.
Absolutely.
When it comes to food.
Yeah, because we go on these diets and we go, well, I'm not allowed to eat cake, or I'm not allowed to eat whatever it is, our favorite food, and then just feel really miserable because we can't eat it. So
for me,
sorry.
For me, it's potato.
It's potatoes. So I'm a real believer in kind of trying to find that balance with food, and as you say to your clients, finding what really, really works, because we are all unique. There is no one diet fits all. What you enjoy eating and what your body thrives on is not necessarily the same for me or anyone else. So it's really important to kind of work on that and work on that own food framework. but yeah, it's about kind of going through that process of finding that peaceful relationship with food. And I know we've got loads of things to go through, to share, to kind of kick that off. Shall we start with that?
Yeah, we have a list of 6 things that we're going to cover. So the first thing we're going to cover is the acceptance. 2, we're going to cover awareness. 3, we're going to cover understanding your current message, relationship with others and food, getting curious about food, and then accountability and support. So if you want to kick us off with awareness, that would be great. I'm going to put a light on because I just realised this is going to get really dark very, very quickly.
Yeah, so number 1 is acceptance, and I'm a big believer in kind of just like getting to kind of accept where you are and being kind of really okay with it, and almost forgiving yourself and forgiving whatever's gone before, whatever is in the past, so that you can let it go and move forward. Because I've worked with so many ladies and they come to me and they're quite angry. They're angry and they're frustrated with where they are. They're angry at the amount of diets they've been on, and that anger, that frustration, it doesn't serve you. It's not going to propel you forward. So we have to let it go, but we have to accept that we are where we are, and take that responsibility, because no one else is coming to save us unless we take that responsibility and step up and say, right, I'm willing to change and I accept this, and I'm going to move forward. Then the other steps don't really matter. So to me, that is key. The acceptance, the forgiveness, letting go of the anger and frustration.
Yeah, I think it's letting go of what you have felt food has done to you. And I think that's one of the big things, because it's not food that's done this.
No,
it's not. It isn't. That isn't the part of this that needs to be blamed. And I think because we do that, we blame ourselves for what we're eating, our relationship with food. That's what creates this non-acceptance of, well, it's because I'm eating the wrong food. And the amount of times I hear that sentence, it's because I'm eating the wrong food.
Yeah.
And I'm like, food didn't cause this. It didn't.
No,
go on.
Go on. No, go on.
No. I was going to start walking on to the second one.
I was just going to kind of follow on with it. It's what's caused this is years of ingrained messages, which I know we're going to talk about in a moment. We've, for a lot of us, we've lived through the whole 80s, the whole dieting culture that just kicked off when people kind of started, when our shapes changed and food became more accessible, and supermarkets popped up everywhere, and the food manufacturing industry and what they've done to the food, and how it's now created and processed. There is so many, there's so many factors that goes into what a difficult relationship with food is.
That is a big one. So when I had my American client here, and I was talking to her about food, and she was saying to me, she was obviously eating around where I live, and she was eating food, and she was saying to me about how it tastes, and she was also saying to me it tastes different. It's a different texture. There's different things. And then when she explained to me what goes into the food industry in the States, I was literally in shock. It's far. I mean, we're lucky. It's far cleaner here than it than it is over there. No. But I wouldn't say it's clean. I would say it's far cleaner than it is over there. So you can understand why there's so many problems within the food industry, within food itself. Here in the UK, that was a big opening for me when I spoke to her and she explained all that to me.
Well, the manufacturers spent thousands on making the food taste so palatable that we come back for more and more and more. You know, they get the right amount of sugar, salt and fat so that it just makes you want it.
I was on a live, I can't remember who I was on the live with. Somebody was talking about this, and they were talking about the food, like one of the brands of foods in Sainsbury's. I can't remember which one it is. What's the nicer brand?
Is it Taste the Difference?
Yeah.
Is that
and they were saying that the taste is put in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I was just making a note so I don't forget to say something in a moment. So should we move on to building awareness with so building awareness around your relationship with food. And I think, again, you know, it's very easy to throw around the term, I know I eat for comfort, or I know I emotionally eat. But I think it's really about kind of, you know, uncovering the triggers, the why, and just delving a little bit deeper than just kind of, I know I'm a comfort eater. So I really recommend, you know, journaling is a great way to do this if you're not working with anybody, and just daily questions to ask yourself, like, you know, what is going on for me today, checking in with yourself, how you're feeling, you know. And if you notice that at the end of the day you're reviewing your day maybe and you notice that you were pulled to food, then just exploring that, well, what was going on for me? Like, an example I give is I mean, I'm not a fan of cereal, but I'll just use the example of a bowl of cereal first thing in the morning. Someone eats a bowl of cereal and they think, oh, I'm really, really hungry, and they go back and they eat another bowl of cereal. And maybe it's not until later in the day and they review the day, they go, actually, when I was eating that cereal, I was worried about the meeting or the presentation I had at work that day, and it was my anxiety over that made me eat the second bowl. But they don't, you know, they haven't kind of processed it. They haven't in the moment thought, well, actually, what is going on for me that I want to eat some more? They've just gone, oh, I'm really hungry, I'm going to have some more. So it's about kind of trying to understand and catch yourself in the moment of when you're eating or when you're driven to eat. If you feel you're eating something more than your body needs and you feel like it's emotional pull, well, getting a little bit clearer on what is going on for you. And I think quite often, if you're craving kind of sweetness, it's kind of like, you know, where in your life do you need some sweetness? Where in, you know, this is a little bit general, but it does fit a lot of the ladies I work with. It's like if they're craving the sugar, the cake, the biscuits, it's, you know, some sort of sweet or loneliness that maybe that there's a void there that they need to fill. And that might not necessarily mean that they're alone, you know, they might have their husband in the next room, but maybe what they really want of an evening is to sit down and chill and watch Netflix together, but the husband wants to watch the football. And they just feel a bit like disgruntled by that. And instead of kind of recognizing what's going on and actually having the conversation and being able to say, actually, I feel like this, can we, you know, can we work out some compromise, or can we, you know, or just being able to air your feelings. What we do is we go, well, I shouldn't feel like this, or maybe not even acknowledging why you feel like that. And then you know, you just sit and watch Netflix on your own with whatever it is you're eating. So crunchy things quite often can be an anger or a frustration, you know, like crisps, crackers, things like that. And bread and pasta, wanting to feel full, is often kind of, you know, feeling that needing to fill a void. So that can be a kind of, you know, an emptiness feeling. So it's just, they're just a couple of examples, but it's that awareness, keeping a journal and getting really in touch with yourself is so good and I'm not talking about keeping a food diary. I'm talking about journaling on how you're feeling, what your thoughts and your moods are, so that you start to recognize the patterns and how your moods ebb and flow, and then you can start to manage them. And anybody that suffers with anxiety, depression, this is a great tool, because obviously our emotions are one of the big drivers for eating. For most of the ladies that I work with. So, well, all of the ladies I work with, if I'm honest. So yeah, building awareness, because you can't change what you don't know.
No, absolutely, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'm really interested with number 3, understanding your current message.
Yeah, so I call these your parent messages. And if anyone's familiar with Eric Berne transactional analysis, he talks about our parent, our adult, and our child ego states. And your parent ego state is like everything you collected growing up as a child, and usually involve things like you should, you must, you have to. So if you ever find yourself using those words, or you're speaking from your parent voice, your parent ego state, your child ego state is your kind of either rebellious child, oh, it's not fair, oh, I'm going to do it anyway, stuff it, I don't care if I'm not meant to have it, I'm having it. We can be adapted child, which is a child that does things to please other people because they just want to be liked and accepted. And we can also be in free child, which is kind of spontaneous, free. And I always think about a free child as also, if you think of a child under kind of 2 years old, they have no constraints on them. They laugh when they want, they fart when they want, they burp when they want. It's just, but they also know their body when it comes to food. If they're hungry, their hand goes out, they make signals they want to eat. If they are full, they will push that fork away from their mouth, they will throw their plate on the floor and make a mess. But they know their body and they listen to their body. So free child is great. But sorry, going back to parent messages, which was what we were going to talk about tonight, it is about understanding what your parent message is around food. So whether you were told that it's rude to refuse food, whether you were told that you must clear food off your plate, that you can't waste it, that you can't have dessert until you've cleared your plate. And once you begin to understand them, it's kind of like, reviewing that. First of all, where did they come from? Now, a lot of these messages will have come from generations above, when food was scarce, because obviously in the war food was rationed, certainly in this country, and therefore it was appropriate to say don't waste your food. Whereas that has been passed down certainly to my mum, and then the food became more and more available, but my mum's passed that down to me, and I was taught, you can't leave the table till you've finished your plate and things like that. So it's understanding where they come from and then choosing which ones you keep, because if those messages are not serving you, and an example of not serving you is if you go out to a restaurant, quite often the portions these days can be really big depending on where you're eating. But if you're still of the thing, of the belief, you're still carrying around that message of I have to eat it all, then how is that serving you? Is that helping you if you still have that belief? So it's about being able to let go of your parent messages that are not serving you.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, again, some of the things that you just said, I'm like, yep, I remember being told those things when I was a kid. It's quite amazing how many of these things stem from our childhood.
It's all learnt behaviour. There's a saying that we have.
I know, but if we could pinpoint that at an earlier age, rather than being a 41-year-old adult and dealing with those problems now or later on, which have had an effect on our lives already, you just want to be able to clear it out.
Oh gosh, yeah, you just want to be able to let it go.
Once you recognize that there is actually this overwhelming inner child healing that you need to actually deal with, and it has contributed to these illnesses, you're like, what now? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Like, is this something real? Like, obviously you're not going to go to a doctor and hear this. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to give you a physical symptom. But it's the inner symptoms that are not being dealt with.
No. And, you know, you mentioned the inner child work, and there's a great little activity that, you know, just about kind of going within and speaking to that inner child. And it's probably a separate live to do, but just getting in touch with that inner child and imagining.
I did one at the weekend. I wrote a letter to my inner child.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And I sat in front of the mirror and I read my letter to my inner child, and I sobbed for about 2 hours. And I've actually told this to several clients who have gone, can you show me how to do that? And because it was one of the most excruciating things I think I've ever gone through, is to recognize and understand that that is part of the reason why you're being held back.
Yeah, it is. And I think part of it is making friends with that inner child and not fighting with her anymore, and reassuring her that it's okay, and that you're going to keep her safe, and that you're going to take care of her, and moving forward with both together, because often your inner child is very alone because she's been left behind and is struggling to move forward with her relationship with food. So it's joining forces and doing it together.
I totally agree. And there'll be a lot of people that will watch this who will see a completely different side of this, because this is not something that's spoken about in our community, but it's something that I massively feel like this is something that we need to deal with.
No, I agree, because you know, when I look at all the different options for help for lipedema, from the advice on nutrition, on anti-inflammatory, to the you know, the help groups for finding a surgeon, to the help groups for non-surgical treatments, and you know, all of the different things, it's very rare you see anything on working out your relationship with food. And it's just like, this is key, because the people with lipedema that are trying to change their relationship with food will often look to a diet company, and they will, you know, they will look for that in the answer to lose any non-lipedema fat. And obviously any conventional diet is not going to look at your relationship with food. It's going to give you a plan to follow, and we've already talked about the fact that we are all unique. So actually, if you're just going to have a plan to follow, how sustainable is that? Because at some point your rebellious child that I just talked about is going to kick in and go, actually, I don't want to do this anymore, because it's someone else's rules that you're being told to follow. So okay, shall we move on to number 4? I think this is quite a biggie as well.
Yeah. So number 4 is relationships with others and food.
Yeah.
So I already spoke about that at the beginning when I was talking about me and my relationship with food and with my family. I was made to feel a very certain way when I was around food. When I was a bigger kid, I would have family members turn around to me when we say we were at a party, you're at a buffet, you put food on your plate, and they'd literally look at me and go, do you really need that? And that's stuck. Like, I'm 41 years old. That's still, you know, sticking around in there. When you go to a party and you go to have your plates and you're going to go and get some food, you can't help but think sometimes that little niggling feeling comes back in, and you're like, no, that's the past. This is where we're at right now. So my relationship with food with others, for me, is actually quite toxic.
But again, you know, thinking about the ladies I work with, you've got your relationship with parents, mothers particularly can be a huge thing, and that might be the mother has a difficult relationship with food themselves. It could be that it's been passed on from generation to generation. It can be the opposite, where the mother is very controlled around food and very particular with food and doesn't understand how that person can't be, you know, can't have the same relationship with food. And then a big one as well is partners, because partners can become feeders. They can be, you know, providing the food. They can be sabotaging anyone's effort to have a peaceful relationship with food. And this isn't always intentional. Sometimes there's a driver behind it, and sometimes you know, there's a driver and they're not even aware of it. So just very, and when people change their relationship with food, sometimes it can be, people can feel threatened that, well, if you change your relationship with food and you change your body, then what if you don't feel the same way about me? So that's obviously someone else's insecurity, but that can, you know, can spark that person to start sabotaging what they're trying to change with food and start to, you know, bring more food into the house.
We've got a message straight away saying, I've got a very controlled mother with food. I think I rebelled. Yeah.
So I was just saying, mothers, sorry, I was onto relationships. Mothers have partners, but mothers, huge. It comes up probably in 60-70% of the ladies I work with. You know, it's interesting because I think sometimes the mothers aren't aware of how damaging their help or their words have been. When I look at my mum, I remember sitting on the bathroom floor sobbing and saying, Mum, you've got to help me, because all of the children at school are picking on me. You've got to help me lose weight. So my mum was trying to help me lose weight. My mum was doing what she thought was best in terms of started taking me to a diet club that she went to herself because she had a challenging relationship with food. But looking back, at 13, I was a member of a Weight Watchers club, you know, like, and when I look back, it horrifies me. But at the time, I don't blame my mum at all for that, because she was doing what she thought was right. I was asking her for help. I was a teenager and she was going, right, I'm going to help you. I'm going to teach you how to eat healthy. And back in the day, we didn't know about the emotional eating so much. We didn't know, you know, she didn't know I had lipedema. So she was trying to help me.
We've got another one. My parents were never at home, so I was a secret eater of chocolate, which you said sweetness equals loneliness.
Yeah. So you know, a tip there I would say is, we talked about the healing the inner child, and it's healing the inner child, and you know, acknowledging that loneliness, acknowledging that you know, that hurt of being on your own as a child, and promising that inner child that she's safe now, and that you're going to work through this together, and finding where you can find sweetness in your life. What is it you need in your life now? I mean, obviously I don't know this lady or gentleman, and I don't know anything about them, but we're trying to work out, okay, well, am I still pulled to chocolate, and is it the same triggers? Because quite often that trigger will spark up time and time again in different situations, but the feeling is the same, you know, the brain connects it the same. We've got another one. My partner says, you don't have to eat all that if you don't want to, and it makes me feel so guilty. Yeah, and this is the thing, people's comments, we can take them so many different ways. This is what I've also realized. So whatever somebody says, we internalize it.
We internalize it the way we want to see it.
That's it. And I remember when I met somebody, you know, when you're like, should I say that? But it was my partner's mother, and I remember just a comment. We went out for dinner and the portion was really huge, and she said, oh, you're not going to eat all that. And I think she was just genuinely looking at this huge portion of food and saying, oh, you're not going to eat all that. But in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, well, what if I want to eat all that? Well, I am quite hungry and I do want to eat it, but oh, well, I can't eat it now because she's going to think this of me and she's going to judge me if I eat it, or, you know. And I was having this whole conversation in my head over one comment that probably didn't mean anything like what I meant it to mean. So, you know, it's also about what we have going on for ourselves.
There's another one here that rings with me. It would have been my granny and my dad that made us finish our food. I remember sitting at the table when I was around 6 and actually crying because I was in pain because I was full. I can actually relate to things like that. I was told you're not getting down until you're finished.
Yeah. I've heard similar things about being warmed up the next day as well. If you don't finish it, you'll have it the next day. Yeah, I think.
And you weren't allowed to have pudding unless you'd finished your dinner, and like all those things. It's all triggering. All of these conversations we've got. My partner always makes me feel guilty eating as he hates me being overweight. I'm not overweight. It's only my legs. Oh, Jill, that makes me feel icky inside. I'm so sorry you're having to go through that. You are not overweight. I want you to explain to your partner that you are not overweight, that you have a disease, and that disease is inflammatory. It is an abnormal fat cell, a connective tissue disease in your body, and that is what is causing the problem with your legs. I know this is going to sound very, very different from probably what you've heard, but you have got to put a boundary in there, my love, and say that as I'm saying it to you, which I know is hard because it's not an easy feat to talk to somebody who we love in the way that I'm talking to you right now. But the moment you put a boundary in, you will stop feeling guilty, and he will stop saying those things to you.
I also think there's a choice of how we feel, isn't there? There's obviously whatever with the relationship, and I don't want to go into too much detail on an open forum, but there's also the choice of how we feel, on what we were just saying, on what somebody says to us and how we internalize it.
Yeah.
So, there is an option for you to choose to actually not take on board comments and choose to feel differently because you know the truth about your legs and the illness that you have. So
I see it all the time.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, no, it is. And I see it all the time with people who come in the clinic and they say the same thing to me. I'll be honest, 90% of the time they've got a supportive partner. But there are that 10% that don't have a supportive partner who doesn't understand. And I've written it down in letter form so they can go home and read that to their partner, that this is what's actually going on. Like it isn't actually what, because lipedema is not understood or known. It's not a brand, like it's not a name that you're going to talk about and everybody's going to understand this about the illness. The reason that, there's none of that around. And so 9 times out of 10 you'll say to someone about lipedema and they'll go, I don't know what you're talking about, never heard of it. But they have heard of fat, and they have heard of overweight, and so they associate and put those things together, and then we don't have the real reason for why this is happening. It's just associated with the verbal idea of fat.
I'm wondering if Jill, if you've shown your partner any lipedema sites on the internet so he can read and understand the condition, and it may be something you've already done, but just a thought there. I think with relationships as well, just going back to partners who like to bring food and like to feed, sometimes it's their role within the relationship. So like for my partner, he does all the cooking, and I'm fortunate that he understands my relationship with food, and you know, he's very much like, what you eating today, and kind of asks. But I think sometimes when people change what they want to eat, or they say, don't cook for me, I'm going to do this or whatever, it takes away the person's role in the relationship. So then they're left a little bit lost. It's kind of like, I don't know what to do if I can't make these lush meals for you that I've always made with cream and with this and with that, and now you're telling me you're not going to eat that. So I don't know how to provide, I don't know how to show my love for you, because that's their role. So sometimes it's about taking that partner on your journey, the journey with you, and being able to say, you know, this is how you can still show me love, this is how you can still help me, if that's the case. And the other thing I was going to talk about with relationships is colleagues and friends. There's a saying about, you are the equivalent of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think if you are surrounded with negative, unhelpful people that kind of do pass comment, or you know, maybe you're in the office and people are always talking about what they're eating and always obsessing over calories and carbs or whatever, then you become kind of wrapped up in that world. So it is about kind of choosing who you spend time with and who you have these conversations about food with. I'm not really conscious and try not to get into conversations with people about food, and you know, like it's the talk at the school gates, or how much I've eaten over the summer and all of this, and you just think, like, let's move away from this, because this is perpetuating that whole kind of cycle with guilt eating and
but
shame
it's a
and
generational follow, like they're
oh
doing what
yeah,
their mums did.
absolutely, yeah,
We're literally going round the circle again, and the
yeah,
child's going to pick up on the same conversation, and that will happen when the child's at the age of the mother.
exactly.
It's generational.
Yeah, and it totally is. I mean, I picked up my mum and dad the other day, because they said, we've been away, and they said, oh, we're going to be really good when we get back, we're going to be really good around food. And I was like, stop talking like that in front of Nancy, because I don't want her to hear any sort of comment of food being good or bad, or us being good or bad depending on what we're eating. You know, that is, like, to
Don't
me,
cheat, don't do this,
yeah,
don't do
it's
that.
like, get rid of all that food talk, and it's so destructive. So yeah, but like you say, it's a cycle, and the next generation will just pick it up unless we change. And you know, you said earlier about, like, you look back at your younger self, and I think at least we can be the drivers, we can be the change for the next generation, hopefully.
Yeah, and this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
This is what my clinic's about, this is what your work's about, this is about the next generation. This isn't about us. This is about making sure it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah,
that's where I sit with this.
yeah,
99% of the time I'm looking at what's coming in the future, like the kids in school. When you see you see kids coming out of school, right? So where my clinic is, it's in the town. I see kids coming out of school walking down the high street, and I'm not gonna lie, I can pick them out, and I can see it, and I'm thinking, oh God, that mother needs to know, you know, that mother needs to know. And we're talking, you know, 13, 15-year-olds.
yeah.
You can already see it happening, and you know, and it's very difficult when you know you can put a stop to it.
But it's how to, well, that's a whole of the conversation, isn't it? Raising awareness within schools.
Yeah, but this is where this needs to really pick itself up, and raising awareness does need to be in school.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, how we go about it, I haven't got a clue, because you don't want to scare children, but that it's something that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah, it does. Oh, shall we
Yeah, I know we're gonna be on
it's
here
9
for a
o'clock,
while.
isn't it? Number 5.
Getting curious with food.
Yeah, so to me, this one again, I don't advocate you've got to follow a set diet. I say get curious about what you are eating. Something that I talk about with my clients is what is in food. What, depending on what you're eating, because obviously everybody watching has a different diet, but some people eat a lot of convenience foods, a lot of processed foods, and the way they're packaged and marketed these days, it can make you think that they are good for you. They count on us or whatever, and it's just being curious and reading the labels, because some things are better than others. I think we all know that the more we can cook from scratch, the better. The more we can buy fresh food and the best quality we can afford, the better. But just get curious, start picking up things in your cupboard when you're out shopping, read the labels. And when I say curious, I say curious without judgment. So don't judge yourself for what you're eating, but just get interested. And the example I gave, and I know I told you earlier and you laughed at me, but I give the example of Farmer Giles, and I say to my clients, if you imagine Farmer Giles over here grows all his own fruit and veg, everything he eats, everything that goes in his mouth, he knows exactly where it's come from because he has reared it on his farm or grown it on his farm. And then over here you've got the highest processed food, processed ready meal, if you like, that you can imagine. And you imagine like a scale between the two, and what we want to be doing is stepping closer and closer towards Farmer Giles. So rather than thinking I'm going from here to here, it's like, how much closer can you get this week to Farmer Giles? How many meals can you eat that are more like Farmer Giles's than like your processed food? And some people watching might be thinking, well, I already eat like Farmer Giles. I mean, I have got a lady in my Facebook group and she's very much like, Jenny, I cook everything from scratch. It's just like when 9 o'clock comes and I hit the sweet cupboard or the biscuit tin or whatever. And obviously that's the emotional crutch, and that's work that she needs to work on around the sweetness, maybe the loneliness or whatever. But it's wherever you are, it is about getting curious without judgment about exactly what you're eating, and not only what you're eating but how it makes you feel. So what food actually really satisfies you? How long does it satisfy you for? There's hundreds of people out there that eat I don't know, let's say porridge for breakfast or Weetabix for breakfast, and it might be something they've done since they were 10 years old because it was drummed into them that breakfast was really important and that's what they should eat, Weetabix or porridge. But actually they find themselves snacking at 11 o'clock because they can't last till lunch. But if they swap that breakfast to for example eggs, they might find that it would easily sustain them till 1 o'clock. So that's just a really basic example, but it's about like each meal, how does it make me feel? How satisfied am I? How long can I last before I need to eat again? And just being experimental. It's like our body is a great science experiment. Gosh, you've proved that with all the work that you've done over the years. But in terms of food, your body is a great science experiment, and the way you eat will affect how you feel, it will affect your mood, it will affect how you sleep, it will affect how much you're inflamed. It's just incredible. And when you start getting in touch with how you really, really feel around what you eat, and I think sometimes that can be quite surprising because you start realizing that actually the foods that you've convinced yourself you love and that you can't control yourself around, that you can't give up, that that you are desperate for, and they're your go-to, suddenly you're like, actually, I wonder if I swap that for that, maybe I'd feel different. And I'm a big believer in when you're changing your diet, you add things in rather than take them away. So add in more wholesome, good food, tweak it instead of taking things away, and then the stuff that you don't need will eventually fall away because you're developing that healthy lifestyle.
Okay.
So yeah.
So number 6
Number
is
6.
accountability and support.
Yeah, so this to me is key. And the reason I say this in terms of support is because nearly every lady I've worked with has said to me, I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. You know, they might be a successful businesswoman, or they say, you know, I've raised 4 children. Why can't I just get my head around this one thing? And it's like, first of all, stop telling yourself you should be able to have a good relationship with food, because there are so many factors we've already talked about going against
100%.
you.
100%.
And, you know, nobody's taught you how to have a good relationship with food. So why should you be able to? Yeah, so get the support you need, join the groups you need, and I don't mean diet groups, I mean groups that are going to help you with your you know, your relationship with food, you know, or whether you decide to work with a therapist or a coach, but get the support you need and get the accountability, because we all need accountability. Accountability keeps us on track. If you look at, you know, the top business people, the top athletes, you know, anybody that is doing well in life, they have coaches, they have people keeping them on track. And I think sometimes we look to friends to do this, but friends have their own interests. Friends are there to support us, and friends or partners, they also know that in some ways food is our go-to. So, you know, your coach is going to be the one, or, you know, people that are looking out for you in a group are going to be the people that say, come on, hang in there, you can do this. Whereas if I asked my partner for support and then I said, oh, I'm feeling really low today, I've had a crappy day, I just want some chocolate, he'd go and get me a bar of chocolate.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know,
I completely agree with that.
it's get the right support.
Yeah, no, it's the way it works in my clinic and with my online clients. The reason why I've got online clients is because of accountability, because they then become accountable to me, which means they know they have to do what I'm asking them to do during the week, and then they see results.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is exactly the same for me when I was working with Amanda Sobey, because when I was working with her, I was accountable to her. And each week when I seen her, I wanted to be able to say, yes, I've done this however many times this week, I've done my training. And as soon as I didn't work with her, my training went out the window.
Yeah, cool.
And it's like, you know, you got to be honest with yourself and say, I know I need that support, I need that accountability.
There is a point that has come up here which says we can't all afford a coach, which is true. And then that's where these lives come in, because what I'm hoping this does is it gives you a bit of discipline to help you to set up your life without having that necessarily. Looking at these lives, or looking at my page or Jenny's page or anybody else's pages on Instagram, all over social media, I am not somebody who will hold back on information. So
absolutely,
that in that case, there aren't people who can necessarily work with us one-on-one. It's not feasible to do with everybody, and I do get that we can't afford a coach. I was back that when I first started, I wasn't able to do these things, but it's about finding your own discipline, your own willpower to be able to do that. And no word of a lie, I know that if you reached out to Jenny and asked a question, or you reached out to me and asked a question, we'd answer a question. We wouldn't charge you to answer a question.
100%. And it's like, I've got a Facebook group that I go live in. If somebody puts they're struggling with something, I will go live in that group and talk to them directly and say, these are some tips for you. I've got nearly 40 podcast episodes that literally take you through this journey.
And I mean, listening to some of Jenny's podcasts can actually be like a session in itself. So like you're literally listening, you're having a session, and you're getting that information, and that's going to help you move on, hopefully within your own journey. But you know, you can always reach out to me, because I know who this is. You know, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk. It's not a problem. Putting out the information that we do helps. I know for a fact that because of the messages that I get, that the information I put out is inspiring enough that people will start to look at things in a different way. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. We're just trying to inspire the community to move forward on their own, within their own self-care healing path.
Absolutely.
So it is now 9:10.
Yes, we've talked a lot.
And we've done we've covered everything that we said we would. This is our first one, so I think it's gone really well. And we'll be back again next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Next Thursday when we start, I think I'm going to do an exercise with Jenny, and we're going to get this a little bit energized in here, and pump everybody up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. You are both assets to this community, so you know we're doing what we can to move ourselves forward. Look at all the thank yous.
Oh, thank you, ladies. Thank you so
we
much.
The problem is we don't think we hit a lot of people. This is going to be on my page. People can watch this. I'm going to put the blurb underneath what this was all about. This was talking about our journeys, but also talking about how this has affected your journeys. Any questions that you've got from this afterwards, please send them in or put them in the comments when I've put the post out. And one of us will get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and keep coming back and looking at it, and then if there's anything I can answer, I will. And if anyone wants to inbox me questions, they can. And if anyone wants to join the Facebook group, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
I'll be doing a live, I think just after bank holiday weekend. I was going to do it bank holiday Monday, and I thought that might be a bad day for people, but I'll be doing a live within the group, some activating your kind of relationship with food stuff. So yeah, come and join.
There is next week we will be doing lipedema and yourself. We'll be including movement in that one. So we'll be talking about self-care, self-love and movement. And then we'll be doing every Thursday, so for the next 3 weeks. So this is our first one, then we've got 3 more.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ladies. You made me cry. It's like you spoke to me direct. Lulu, you are so welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Maureen, I'm glad this has helped you. Flo, she's going to your Facebook page right now. So we've got everybody, you know, like I said, anybody who comes on and watches this is what we're here for. This is what we do. This is why we're doing what we do.
Yeah.
You're not on your own. None of you are. You have to recognize that. You have to realize that
we're a team.
You are not on your own. We are a team. Yeah, we are a team.
We are a team. Yeah.
Okay, I am going to say goodbye to all of you. I'm going to say goodbye to Jenny. Jenny, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having
me.
Thank you.
I will say this is all Jenny's idea. She did put all this together. So it is quite an adventure, and seeing where we're going to be in 4 weeks. So do we want to leave with a idea of doing something for this week following to next Thursday?
Oh, okay. Well, as it is, we haven't planned this, have we? Okay. So as it is lipedema and your relationship with food, I would say your task for this week is to get curious about why you're eating, and journal daily, asking yourself like questions, just simply like, how am I feeling today? What is going on for me today? What is it I need today? So in terms of like, maybe you just need a big hug, maybe you just need to phone a friend, maybe you need to meditate, maybe you need to go for a walk and clear your head, but trying to get in touch with how you're feeling, because that has a massive knock-on effect to what you are eating when you're an emotional eater. So get curious about your relationship with food by raising your awareness. And if you're already journaling and doing something like that, then get curious about what's in your food in terms of reading all your package, your labels. Yeah,
totally agree. Bring it with you next week, and let us know in the
comment on the video when you've done it.
Yeah, when you've done it, comment, send us messages, send us picture messages, let us know. Let's see whether or not we can combine this with the community. Let's see whether or not this helps.
Fab, brill.
All right.
Thank you, lovely. Thank you everyone for watching.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.